Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scott McTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks podcast.
The more I think about it and the more I reflect on the program, I really want to make sure to, activate even more departments and say, we have this program and we have an opportunity for doing pilot projects.
Hey everybody, it's Scott. It's Wednesday. It's the Pitchwerks podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that you are a regular listener, but you might not be. If not, please remember to subscribe. It's pretty easy to do. Just find that podcast app on your phone, click the button, and then all of your worries will melt away. You will actually get this fine program every single week. It's sales, it's marketing, it's startups. It comes out every Wednesday, and when you're a subscriber, you get it before everybody else. It's just one of the many perks about hanging out in my little posse here. This week, we're talking to Annia Aleman from the city, and that's the City of Pittsburgh, the City of Champions. And they have this fantastic program. Annia is the manager of it. It's called PGH Lab. I want you to think of it like this. Big thinkers have access to people in the city government who can actually tell you what problems they're trying to solve. And that collaboration can turn into some great things for both parties. The startup can figure out, sort of where they should go next. Are they on the right track? Should they completely pivot? Meanwhile, that city champion, the agency, can take a look at what they're doing. They can make decisions about whether or not they should try to innovate, push a little bit harder. They can give great feedback to each other. It really is a cool program and a cool partnership. Let's talk to Annia. All right, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. I've got Annia Aleman. She's the Civic Innovation Specialist. I guess probably... Is there more than one Civic Innovation Specialist?
There is one more, yes.
And the manager of the PGH Lab program here in this fine city. Annia, how are you?
I'm doing pretty great. I'm really excited to be here, so thank you for having me.
I'm actually really excited to have you here. This is one of those times when you can see how a public-private partnership has a ton of potential benefit. But let me tee you up a little bit. PGH Lab is pretty young still. You just had your third cohort? Yes. And I don't think if there's 10 of these in the world, I'd be surprised. Am I right by that?
There might be about 7.
There might be 7. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's very, very uncommon.
Exactly.
And I'm going to say something, and I need you to just basically tell me whether or not it's correct. This is the city getting involved and invested in its entrepreneurial community and saying, you can try these ideas with us in a partnership, in a cooperative environment, so that you can learn about whether or not the product is on target, and we can benefit maybe from some innovative thinking. Is that?
That is correct. That's perfect.
Okay, I'm glad, because we didn't really rehearse or practice or whatever that's how I've been reading it from the distance, right? Mm-hmm. I've been watching the pitches to get into PGH Lab. Obviously, actually, some of the people that are in there are friends of the show, right? Mm-hmm. You've got Click It in there now. You've got Global Wordsmiths in there now.
MetaMesh, yeah. MetaMesh is in there.
It's funny that you know that, right? Because MetaMesh actually was like our pre-show. Like, Adam sat down in that chair before anybody else did.
Wow.
Like, it never was released. It was basically like me getting used to the idea of interviewing an entrepreneur that I didn't know. So yeah, you've got a pretty good gang.
Yeah, I mean, at least it has been like that since the very beginning, but I think this cycle is probably one of the most diverse in regards to solutions and the kind of proposed solutions that the entrepreneurs gave us, this time around. So we're very, very excited to have them. So
how many companies do you take in?
So the number of companies that we accept each cohort really depends. Mm-hmm. What we do is we have a centralized review committee in the city, and in this committee we have department leaders and also representatives from each authority that's participating in a given cohort. So they get together, they read all of the applications, and then they narrow down the applicants into maybe about 10 to 15 finalists. And when they do this, they're doing this because there are solutions that they want to implement in ongoing projects. But also we ask them to volunteer a city champion, which would be the main person working with the companies throughout a pilot project. So however many city champions and interesting projects, we can identify, that number will really decide how many companies we can accept in a given cohort.
So you're not starting off with, we have to find 10 companies. Maybe you don't have 10 good applications. Or the other way, if you said 10, but you needed to stretch to 20, that would present a similar kind of a challenge.
Yeah, and we really want to make sure that we enable a great partnership and that we do the best we can to provide good, interesting testing platforms. So we really want to make sure that the city champions are engaged and that they understand that they commit to help the companies. So therefore, it really depends on each cohort and what kind of interesting projects we can provide.
So what was the genesis of this whole idea? Like, who started this?
Yes. So back in 2016, the mayor and also Orden's chief innovation officer, Deborah Lam, they wanted to find a way to directly connect with startups. And they wanted to engage them. And also they wanted to see the city play a role in regards to, how can we bring more innovative thinkers to city government. So what they did was they did roundtables, to ask entrepreneurs what were some of the ways that that the city could help them, and through that roundtable discussion and also some research of what other cities were doing in regards to engaging with entrepreneurs, we decided that access was one thing that we could really address and that we could provide to the startups. So before PGH Lab, there was no one easy way where a startup will call in, to City Hall.
It was hell.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so difficult.
And
you could save somebody a ton of money and they'd never be able to find a way to give you the opportunity.
Well, and it was difficult to just, maybe find someone or one department in particular to just test something.
Right.
And so we decided that, and there were other cities, like San Francisco and Kansas City, that were already starting programs of entrepreneurship in residence in City Hall. And actually, the program was also researched with best practices through a CMU capstone project as well. So we asked the students, if we could implement something like what San Francisco is doing in Pittsburgh, how would it look like? So then I came into the city that year, and that was one of the first projects I worked on.
Now, did you have like a background with any similar type of a project?
No.
No, so this was new to you too.
Yeah, it was very new to me. And even I worked in with small businesses, but not really with tech startups and emerging technologies. So it was a really brand new, exciting project, not only just for me, but the city.
It's hard sometimes to move early, to be one of the first to do anything, because you're writing the script as you read it. You have to kind of invent the new discipline at the same time as you need it.
Exactly. And we try to plan as much as possible, like a not so complicated application. We got together with the legal department to set up a legal infrastructure to make sure that everybody involved in PGH Lab, was safe to try new things and new emerging technologies. So we did a lot of planning before we even launched the pilot project in 2016. But we were definitely learning as we went. So it was quite interesting. And we are still doing that as well. I think it's very, we cannot never plan, so much. We can, and each cycle is each cohort, the entrepreneurs come to us with new questions or new challenges, and we really will need to adapt as quickly as possible as well.
Well, and honestly, here comes a big fat compliment for you. Get ready. So I'm sure you've seen the photo that's circulating with Neil Tyson, the astrophysicist guy, holding a T-shirt, and it says, "Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change." Okay, that's how I knew you were really smart, is the fact that is your whole day, is adapting not just to the change necessarily in, oh God, we like this program, maybe there's a hole in it, right? We didn't cover all the bases. You have another problem too, in the fact that startups in the early going pivot and change, and a founder will exit, or they will like the money they thought they had dries up and it's gone, right? So it takes a great deal of ability to change to do your job. Along that vein, even though you're only on your third cohort, you have to have seen some things that sort of introduced you to the turbulence of startups, tech startups in particular. As you go forward, how are you changing the process, the application process in particular, to sort of find the strongest candidates?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
I love it. Yes. So, like I said, I think for each cycle, I really make sure that I understand exactly what the entrepreneur's needs are. And in every feedback that they have, we take it in and we try to iterate as quickly as possible as well. And so I think even though we have only had 3 cycles, like they're very honest with you and they say, well, I think this worked very well, or maybe we're meeting too often and I don't have enough time. So for the next cohort, maybe don't meet as often or something like that. So we try to implement that. In regards to the application itself, because we are running now our 3rd cycle, the program has also expanded within the City of Pittsburgh. So this cycle, we have seen more departments engage, and we have seen more people coming in with actual needs and say, well, I want to find out how to maybe decrease turnover, or I want to see how I can, what are some treatments for composting and things like that. Does PGH Lab offer something like it? And so this 3rd cycle, it has been a great experience just to even, and myself also, I've been at the city for only 2.5 years. So even connecting with even more people in the city, understanding their needs and how they want to use technology to help them in the day-to-day operations has been great. So I think moving forward, we really want to enable, people from city departments to give us even more ideas, feedback, and challenges where we may want to, we want to do more a focused recruitment. Maybe as startups, if the next cycle the city departments have specific needs, maybe we would just tell, well, do you have a solution that may address this?
That'd be cool if you could post it publicly what the different departments were asking for 6 months before the application process. Say like, okay, the public board is up for what the wish lists are, and we can't promise you that it's going to happen. But hey, look, there's somebody that said something about composting, and there's somebody that said something about cybersecurity, and there's some, whatever the things are that they're not getting attended to.
Exactly. And I mean, right now, that has been my strategy for recruitment as well. Whenever I go to, all of the networking events and all of the startup and entrepreneur-oriented opportunities here in the city, because I spend so much time connecting with departments, I also I can see the startups and say, oh, I think, PGH Lab will be a great program for you. Have you thought about it? Do you know about it? So I think even being more intentional about that, and providing more interesting challenges might attract more startups with even more diverse solutions for the next cohort.
So if I get that phone call, I get the Annia phone call, and it's like, congratulations, you're in, which probably doesn't happen with a phone call. But for the purposes of an audio show, we say it does.
Okay.
When you call and you say you're in PGH Lab, I'm curious, what exactly does that mean in terms of speaking purely selfishly on the part of the startup? What do I get?
Yeah, so I mean, since the very beginning, even from the application period, we tell the startups, if you have a working prototype and you would like to get access and connect, and test this working prototype with the City of Pittsburgh and the different authorities, this is a program for you. So once startups get in, they get connected with a city champion. They get one, like a city liaison. So that's me. And that's, anything they will need to make their pilot project successful, I will make that happen for them. They also get access to, conference rooms, co-working spaces within the city. Let's say if they needed to be downtown, for a while, or if they needed to store something,
right.
Anything that is related to the pilot project, they would be able to have a space there. And we also connect the startups with different city departments. Perhaps they're working with one department in particular, but, and the program gives them the opportunity to connect with other people, provide feedback about how their pilot is working, and just understand how government works better. I think they can use really the City of Pittsburgh as a platform for innovation, but it is also an opportunity for them to see if they ever think about, connecting with government later on as a customer.
Right.
They get a first-hand experience of how to work with one, with cities. And we understand that a lot of the startups, having universal solutions. So what works in Pittsburgh can work in Baltimore, in DC, somewhere else. But we want to make sure that, that they feel like they can test in a safe environment, that trial and error is acceptable, and that and how to engage with an early customer. How do you do it? How do you, sell your product? And then, if
actually
you need to
support it.
And if you need to iterate, how do you do it with your clients right there, and taking that feedback in and then improving that. So, for example, last cycle we had Flywheel. And Flywheel worked. They were placed at the URA.
For those of you that remember, Amanda Lowe was on this show, I don't know, and she's one of the principals. She and Adam Nelson founded Flywheel together. And that was probably, 30, 40 episodes ago. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so they were placed at the URA, and they worked closely with the URA HR manager. And the HR manager wanted to, find different ways to, improve productivity, improve employee engagement, and Flywheel provided, they're providing new and innovative concepts of how to better engage with your employees. So they tested a model that that it was new to them, that they wanted to test. So they took the opportunity to do that testing at the URA, and that went for about 3 months. And after that, the HR manager decided that, okay, we want this, we want to see this the whole way. And so they got a contract afterwards. And although it's not, PGH Lab does not provide a path to procurement,
of course,
it is one way to work intimately, with some city government entities, and see how they can improve something, city operations, and also how can startups, find an exposure to a different market.
It's interesting that you say that it's not a path to procurement, because we do have to talk about that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Typically, working with the government is designed to be an exercise in auditability, right? So somebody can't just sort of randomly select a vendor, because a lot of times random isn't so random. Mm-hmm. So my brother-in-law owns a roofing company, and I want him to do the roofing, and I just, we just picked somebody out of the phone book, and it just happens to be someone that's, connected to me, is my neighbor, is my friend, or whatever. So a lot of safeguards had to be put in place, where there's a bidding process, there's a value assessment, there's, do you meet the procurement guidelines for things like certification, permits, licensing, I think a lot of people walk away from public procurement because they're afraid of their ability to sort of understand and navigate the process, right? And honestly, I think that's one of the virtues of PGH Lab, is the fact that, when you're already going to City Hall, right, you can be chipping away at that stone a little bit slower and at a more deliberate pace. Mm-hmm. Does that feel right?
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, even our legal infrastructure right now that allow us to test with startups is very similar to, what, companies go through if they were to, try to go through the procurement process.
Right.
Yeah. So, it does give them that experience, and that's just protocol. That's just, in order for us
it's there for protection. Everybody is being covered in this process. It's not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. It is, however, not an easy, you're going to get this contract this afternoon kind of a thing. It takes time, and it takes people, and it takes effort. Let's very quickly talk about what the purview of the city actually means in this regard, right? So, for example, the school district is not part of that, right? Mm-hmm. But would the Port Authority be?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't sure about that one.
No, not yet. But if they want to, they can connect with us.
Oh, balls in your court, Pat Transit. Anyway.
Yes. So right now we have the Housing Authority of the City of Pittsburgh, the Urban Redevelopment Authority, the Parking Authority is our newest partner, and the City of Pittsburgh. And last cycle we had PWSA. So what this means is with one common application, startups can get connected to any of the participating authorities.
Yeah.
So right now we have, 2 companies, MetaMesh and Global Wordsmith. They're working with the Housing Authority of the City of Pittsburgh. There is this company called Zensors. They're from CMU.
Okay.
And they're working with the Parking Authority. And we have four companies at the City of Pittsburgh working with us. Mm-hmm.
Now, we had Mary Jane from Global Wordsmiths on when she was the audience favorite at the Invest in Her.
Mary Jane is the best.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, that is correct me if I'm wrong, that's not a tech company. That is a straight up like access to language and basically making sure that, in this case, I think it's a great fit. The Housing Authority, that's a key element of the city government, making it so that people who speak a different language still have access to, the resources that the city can bring to bear in their support. But there is no tech play there. So people that aren't tech shouldn't necessarily think that they can't apply.
Exactly. And we really want to emphasize that. So in the case of Mary Jane, I had an info session with Incubate Her from Chatham University. And we were both, the 2 programs are fairly new, so we wanted to get as many people as possible there. And she came up to me and said, I am interested in PGH Lab, but I'm not sure if it's the right program for me. And so then I knew that she had translation services. But what she told me then was that she wanted to start going into consulting. So she said that, language access is not just about the access to interpreters. People have to create a culture within their organizations, that and people have to be trained in order to understand why they even need services that allow them to connect with non-native speakers. And so she has a consulting idea where she wants to train at the organizational level, how to be prepared to cater to non-native speakers. And so that's what she's testing right now, the Housing Authority. So this will mean, anything from, making sure employees understand the value of it and how can deploy these services effectively. Right. And just understand at the organizational level, how can we start implementing this much needed service and, provide the best services that we can.
It's difficult enough for some people that speak English, right? I mean, it's really hard. I mean, some of these situations are already very challenging. And then you add in the fact that there's a language and customs barrier.
Exactly.
She's doing good work.
I think most often whenever we say like, oh, you need language access or different types of language services, people just say, well, we have Google Translate.
You know what? That's exactly what I said to her too. I was like, that's your biggest competition, is people just thinking that they could sit down at a laptop. And if you ever want to try something funny, translate something into a language that you think Google has mastered and then translate it back.
Well, so I have done that. So my mother, her English is fine, but there are a lot of things that she doesn't understand sometimes. And so I just sent her a Google Translate and she's like, what is this? This is nonsense to me. I still don't know what you do every single day.
The city, it's easy just to gloss over it and say the city, right? But that's a lot of services, right? First of all, the ones that we typically run into, right? All your first responders, right? So you've got your police, your fire bureau, your, ambulances, first responders of all different stripes. You get into the people who are actually doing all of your, taxation, property. Like there's a lot of opportunity in there for people to go in and if I may, there's a lot of opportunity to infect people with that bug, that innovation bug, where they start actively looking at, is there a smoother, smarter way to do it? Or should I ask for somebody to reevaluate my process? You said that more people are now participating. That metric is moving in the right direction.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Are you starting to see trends now in what kinds of things need to be reinvented at the city?
So I think, since we do a lot of services, I think it depends maybe on the year. I know that, at least this year, with environmental services, they've been wanting to more actively engage, people into, what are the better ways to recycle? How can we start maybe introducing composting into the city? How does that look like? And so Still City Soils, applied, and then they got in because it was one of their top projects and something that they wanted to test out at DPW, at the Department of Public Works. So that was just a great match. So I think it really depends on, the time, at the time of the year maybe,
right.
and the people and what people are working on in regards to the different projects. For example, at the URA, a lot of the companies that they have been working with, they have to do with, human resources. And, we have been working in regards to how do we start understanding our buildings and our assets better. So there was one company, Lean FM, and Lean FM Technologies, and they do They do smart buildings optimization and feedback.
Nice.
And so we have been working the city has been working for about 2 years in understanding, how, inventory, how the stage of our buildings, what are they like right now? What do they need in order to start, assessing, providing more information for budgeting or something like that. We have implemented a few new softwares that tells us exactly what are the conditions of the bridges, or what are the conditions of, what is the current state of buildings. So I think once this company came in, it was like, I think that company brings a solution that really will tie nicely into the ongoing projects. So I think it depends. I really, the more I think about it and the more I reflect on the program, I really want to make sure to, activate even more departments and say, we have this program and we have an opportunity for doing pilot projects. Do you have a particular need or something that we can, help
again,
address?
This goes back to, this is because you're so early.
Yes.
You're not able to pattern after too many other cities.
Mm-hmm.
So, what comes next is also sort of up in the air. Like, well, do we extrapolate from this? And then, how does this go from here? What's the next step with, where we want to go? Where do the alumni fit in? How does that all...
Exactly. And right now we're really, we have been making sure that we check in with the companies and we understand that they're meeting their milestones and their goals. And once this cycle ends at the end of May, we really are going to dive in deep and say, okay, what worked, what didn't, and how can we improve this program and make it more accessible for a lot more startups in the city.
When is the next cohort? Where would people go if they wanted to apply?
Yes. So, you can follow us on Twitter at PGH _lab. And so you can find us there. Also, our website is pghlab.pittsburghpa.gov. And stay tuned for next cohort, which will be midsummer.
Okay.
So we're thinking about maybe sometime early July.
Fantastic.
Yeah, for
Annia,
sure.
thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This was a great time. All right, that's the end of the ride. As I said before, subscribe if you haven't. Pretty easy. Hit the button, subscribe, rate and review too if you haven't gotten there already. And as long as I'm asking for stuff, I'm going to ask you to follow us on social media too. It's always Pitchwerks, PITCHWERKS. We got a LinkedIn company page, a Twitter, a Facebook, and Instagram. And you know what? There's a never-ending stream of just top-shelf content in all of those different places. I want to take a quick moment to thank Annia for coming in and everybody over at the city for doing what they're doing. We are one of the most innovative cities in the world right now. And you know what? It's just really fun to watch. Until next week, I'll catch you then.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and McTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com. PITCHWERKS.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, PITCHWERKS.